Today we're going to dive into something really fascinating from the ancient world. It's this whole set of laws, and at their core is this truly radical idea, a complete society-wide reset.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if every 50 years, society just hit a giant reset button? We're talking every single debt, poof, gone. Every piece of family land, back to its original owners. Every person who had fallen into servitude, set free. It sounds like something from a modern political dream, right? But this idea is literally thousands of years old.
So what was this called? It was known as the Year of Jubilee. And it was this law laid out in the book of Leviticus that basically mandated a nationwide reset every 50th year. It was a huge deal, and its purpose was, well, pretty profound.
So let's really dig into just how radical of a societal reset this was. I mean, we're not just talking about a national holiday here. This was a complete and total restructuring of the entire social and economic landscape.
The whole point, really, was restoration. It was designed to set things right. Think of it like a built-in safety net for society. It was there to stop something we see happen all the time, right? The way wealth and land just naturally seem to pile up with a few people, which can create these terrible cycles of poverty that last for generations. The Jubilee was this incredible idea meant to make sure that freedom and equality got a fresh start for everyone on a regular basis.
Okay, so how did this whole thing actually work? Well, the timing and the structure were super specific. It wasn't just a random event. It built up over decades.
The entire system was built around this rhythm of rest. You'd work the land for 6 years, but then the 7th year was a Sabbath year. The land got to rest. You do this 7 times. So after 7 of these Sabbath cycles, you hit year 49. And that set the stage for the big one, the 50th year, the Jubilee, a full year of restoration.
And you know, the name Jubilee itself is pretty cool. It comes from the Hebrew word yobel, which actually means ram's horn, and that's because the start of this huge monumental year was kicked off with the blast of a ram's horn. This happened on the Day of Atonement, a really significant religious day, and that blast was the signal for this massive release and a whole new beginning.
So the Jubilee reset really stood on 3 massive pillars that touched, pretty much every part of your life. We're talking about land, liberty, and loans.
First up, land. This is huge. It didn't matter how many times a piece of property had been sold or how long a family had been gone from it. In the year of Jubilee, that land automatically went back to the original family it was first given to, just like that.
The second pillar was liberty. Anyone who had been forced to sell themselves into servitude, probably because of crushing debt or poverty, was set free. They could go back to their families, back to their homes, and back to that land that was just returned to them.
And third, you guessed it, loans. All debts were completely forgiven, wiped clean. It was a total economic reset, the whole point of which was to give everybody a completely fresh start.
Now, the why behind all this is absolutely crucial. You see, the Israelites had this core belief that the land didn't actually belong to them. It belonged to God. They were just looking after it like stewards. So in their view, they had no right to sell it off permanently.
This had a really fascinating effect on the economy. When someone sold their land, they weren't actually selling the land forever. It was more like they were leasing out the harvests. So the sale price was calculated based on one thing: how many years were left until the next Jubilee. The closer you got to the 50th year, the cheaper the land became. Makes sense, right?
And what's interesting is there wasn't just one way to get your land back. The Jubilee, that was like the ultimate safety net. It happened automatically. But there were other ways too. At any point, a close relative, known as a kinsman redeemer, could step in and buy the land back for the family. Or hey, if you happen to get wealthy again, you could buy it back yourself, all based on that same sliding scale price.
Now, here's a really interesting little detail. These rules were mainly for agricultural land, which, was the source of a family's livelihood. So, houses out in the country, in unwalled villages, they were treated just like the fields. They went back to the original family at the Jubilee. But houses inside walled cities, the big commercial centers, were a totally different story. If you sold one of those, you only had 1 year to buy it back. After that, the sale was permanent. It did not get returned at the Jubilee.
And this whole Jubilee system was backed up by laws for day-to-day finances. The command was really clear. If your neighbor falls on hard times, you have to help them out. You should lend them money or food, sure, but, and this is a big but, you were absolutely forbidden from charging interest. You couldn't profit from their misfortune. Loans are meant to be a form of social support, not a way to get rich. This idea of fairness wasn't just about money either. It was woven into the very fabric of their legal system.
It was all about laying a foundation for real justice across the entire society.
And that brings us to a phrase I'm sure we've all heard: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, right? And let's be honest, it usually sounds pretty brutal, like a call for endless revenge. But in its original context, it meant something completely different. This was actually a law of equal justice. Its purpose was to limit revenge, not to encourage it. The whole idea was that the punishment should fit the crime and no more. It was there to stop things from spiraling out of control, to prevent a situation where someone loses a tooth and then their family tries to take a life in return. It was about proportionate, equal justice.
And what's really crucial here is that these laws of justice were for everyone. The same rules applied equally to native Israelites and to foreigners who were living among them. Didn't matter who you were, the standard of justice was the same.
So, we're left with this big question, right? What's the lasting vision of this incredible blueprint for society? I mean, did they actually do it? Did it work? Well, from what the source tells us, it seems like these laws weren't always followed. In fact, later writers in the Bible looked back at Israel's 70-year exile in Babylon and saw it as a direct consequence. Their interpretation was that the land was finally getting the 70 years of rest it was owed from all the missed Sabbath years they had ignored. But even if it wasn't perfectly practiced, the vision itself, wow, it's powerful. The Jubilee's core principles were all about restoration, about compassion, and about the fundamental dignity of every single person, the belief that everyone deserved a fresh start.
And that really leaves us with a big question to think about. In our own world today, where we're constantly talking about debt, inequality, and creating a fairer society, what can this ancient vision of restoration teach us?